Hello, John.
Hello, Oliver.
And today we're going to talk about the US elections.
That's right. There's at the present time there's the presidential election in the US, and also then elections for the Senate and the Congress as well. Although that part of it is not getting as much highlight as it is as the business of President Donald John Trump and former Vice President Joe Biden, age 77, who was he's one of the oldest that ever went for election, and former Vice President when Barack Obama became president and got 2 terms, and he was Vice President. And funny enough, normally the Vice President would get the nod then when it's an election, but he was sidestepped, and Hillary Clinton got the nod instead of Joe Biden, which would have normally been the case for the Vice President to get a shot at it, assuming he was good at what he was doing, but he was overlooked. And then, of course, Hillary Clinton got all the publicity and the idea that she was going to win hands down. The media and all were in support of her. And it upset the apple cart completely that Donald John Trump, the Republican candidate, who was not really a politician as such, but people saw that he was straightforward, and they were more or less fed up with the political agenda that is long on promises and short on action. President Trump was the opposite of that. What he said has come to pass during his 4 years. He has implemented a lot of the policies that he spoke about. He has not gone slavishly following China and taking products from them where American jobs were being lost. He has put a stop to that and created great employment for all concerned in the US, including the people of the coloured population, the Latinos, the people that African descent, and all this, and none was discriminated against. So he's been very successful. Now, from the time he was elected, even in the first 126 days, there was 125 leaks calling his name into question, and leaks that were quite lethal in what they were purporting to do. In other words, to give him a terrible impression with the public. Leaks that were done on purpose. Now there's an inquiry about it from the Justice Department. But these leaks come from the Justice Department and the FBI and all these people that should never be responsible for leaks whatsoever. So 125 out of the 126 days. The Democrats and the media spent their time trying to find fault, saying about the Russians interfering. His first national security advisor, Major General John Flynn, had to resign because they made out that he was colluding with the Russians. It has turned out to be false, even for General George Flynn, or John Flynn, and he has instituted proceedings to uncover who was responsible. So, you see, this is, I think, what happened under the previous administration of Obama and Biden. It's a name that is very difficult to sort of pronounce, to my way of thinking. And anyway, suffice to say that President Trump has had to withstand all that, create the employment that he did, in which there was full employment. And he dealt with China in a way that they should have been dealt with by previous administrations, which they weren't. He's the only world leader and the only president in the US that is completely pro-life. Completely. I addressed it there last year, and before that the Vice President, Mike Pence, addressed the pro-life. Pro-life from conception to natural death. He also speaks about God, that's the one that's in charge. He hasn't got a secular agenda in that sense. He's also pro-family, which is to do with a man and a woman, a husband and wife, and children. And he's also the only world leader, aside from perhaps Poland and Hungary, that is pro the practice of religion without persecution. He has orchestrated that view in the United Nations and has suffered some kind of negative publicity from that organisation, which has an agenda of by their offshoots of pro-abortion and this idea of globalisation. So he's a lone voice in that sense, believe it or not. And I'm including the Catholic Church, not with him, in the business of Pope Francis. So he is to be supported. And he is supported in the US by a lot of people. Polls recently gave this man, Joe Biden, the vice president, the former vice president, now the presidential candidate, and he has chosen a running mate, a lady who was, I don't know whether she was a senator or a congresswoman, but a very much pro-abortion candidate, pro-abortion to natural birth, which is against all what America stands for, and a lot of people stand for life. Although the media, the mass media, and the TV and the newspapers sing from that hymn sheet, and have not been pro-Trump, with a few exceptions. EWTN would, generally speaking, be pro-life and pro-Donald Trump. But there are, they have at the present time a correspondent that is speaking about the elections, a fellow called Philip Crowther, that works for Associated Press, an Englishman, by the way. And without a doubt, I have complained to the EWTN in this country about that individual, because he definitely appears to me to be anti-Trump. He speaks like what Bob Hope said years ago, and I remembered it years ago. And I think Bob was born in England, but he's American really, through and through. And he was in England, and I'm going back years, and he said on a programme he was on, he was always a bit of humour, but he said about you English people, your compliments sound like insults. And Philip Crowther fills that bill. I wouldn't like him to have an opinion about me or any person that might be pro-life and pro all the rest of it. He doesn't seem to see that narrative whatsoever. President Trump has visited some of these cities in which there have been terrible destruction of this sort of pro-agenda Black Lives Matter organisation, well funded apparently by people that have an agenda themselves and using them to achieve it. They've actually had riots and burning shops and business premises and burning garages with lots of cars. A terrible looking sight. And all because one man was killed by police in Minnesota and started all these riots. The business of praying for the soul of that man that was killed, it doesn't seem to be a factor in their thinking. And that's what you normally do if somebody is killed by an accident or something else, if you're a Christian. And funny enough, a lot of black people are staunch Christians and they do a lot of singing, gospel singers. So one admires that quality about people. But the Black Lives Matter has caused a lot of trouble. President Trump has condemned them, and he brought in a law when they were toppling statues of patriots and even Catholic statues and doing various evil. He set a 10-year prison sentence for anyone that knocked down a statue, and that is stopped. Because
Very good.
Right. So the point is that it behoves Catholics and Christians and people of goodwill and people that are pro-life, if they're neither Catholic, Christian or anything else, if they're pro-life and pro the natural law, they would need to be voting for President Trump and the Republican Party because they're pro-life as well. The Democratic Party has gone down a road that's absolutely evil in a lot of ways of what they promote. Killing babies up to birth, which is just terrible to even contemplate it, the cruelty. They feel pain, as we said before, and promoting other stuff that's not conducive to a good civilised society the way it's run. Too many countries are run now without respect for human life. If you haven't got respect for the basic human right of a person to be born, what other lives do you respect? You can certainly see in some countries they have euthanasia. That means if you feel that you don't want to live, you can be killed. And assisted suicide, no matter what age you are, if you feel depressed and want to end it with the assistance of the state, that is a possibility. So these are all evil. No respect for life. So once you start going down that road, this is what happens. So President Trump is a voice that nearly of the calibre of John Hume, but he's not portrayed like that because he would have led a life, I suppose, that wouldn't have been strictly Catholic or Christian because he was married a few times. But people change. We're all sinners and we change. None of us are perfect. None. But we try to do the right thing as best we can, and so is he. But the others are masquerading as if they're doing the right thing, and this need to be the 10. This fellow, Philip Crowther, I'm surprised that they haven't got a US person standing up for what he stands for, what President Trump stands for. You want the person to give a kind of a balanced view, and not the kind of the way this fellow Crowther does it. And of course, the independent media are just absolutely dreadful in that country.
Thank you very much, Sean.
Thank you very much. Hope I